I will be presenting some information, but I also think it's important for all of you to ask questions. And the reason for asking the questions is because the field of contemplative studies is a relatively new field. And let me tell you a little bit about myself. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology. I've been practicing almost 30 years as a psychotherapist, as a consultant, and of course, as a trainer in contemplative states. I was very fortunate that I started meditating when I was young. I was under 10 years of age. And then eventually I started reading a little bit more. By the time I was at university, I went to university at University of Colorado at Denver. In the 1970s, there was established in Colorado some meditation centers, which also included some of the experts today, including John Kabat-Zinn, who is the modern founder of mindfulness. These were some of the people who would go to these centers to participate and to train other people. I am first a human, I am second a health professional, and lastly, I am a mental health professional. And I'm here mostly as a human because, you know, the professional aspect is good, it gives us information, we can do a lot of things, but at the basis, we are all humans, we work with humans, and it's important to come from that standpoint. As a clinical psychologist, some of you might be mental health professionals. I'm going to mention beneficence and not non-maleficence. Beneficence means that my work ethically is to benefit humans independently of who they are, the conditions that they're in, and non-maleficence means to do no harm to humans. That's my standpoint in general. I'm here to support humans using some very powerful techniques. These powerful techniques, there has been much more research into them over the last 15 years, I would say. But we still have quite a bit to learn from these powerful techniques. I want to present, but I want you also to be thinking of questions that you have. There is still today an enormous amount of skepticism about what contemplative practices can do and what they are about. I started studying this young when I was in graduate school, when I was getting my doctorate. Is more or less the time in which this kind of exploded in the mental health field. And since then, it has just progressed to the point where we're at, in that the entire mental health field is integrating conscious breathing and meditation to the practice. What that does is that it just improves overall what people are getting. I'm also going to say, if you have questions, I'm not going to wait until the end to ask the questions. Just raise your hand and I'll try to address them as we go on. What I would like for you to do while you are listening is to breathe deeply. If you have not had training in diaphragmatic breathing, I am just going to very briefly stand up and demonstrate very quickly what it is that I mean by a diaphragmatic breathing. So I'm going to stand up right now, and I just want you to observe my thoracic cavity. This is the thoracic cavity. This is the abdominal cavity. Most people breathe here, above the diaphragm. That's 20% of your lung capacity. We're going to breathe here, moving the diaphragm down to almost 80%, and then very gently exhale. I'm going to go sideways so you can see my hands. Look at this hand. I'm going to inhale. Now I'm going to exhale. I'm going to put it in a little closer so you have a closer look at the hands. So again, look at this hand. I'm going to inhale. and I'm going to exhale.
It's all from the nose.
That's a very good question, Claude, and I'm going to address it immediately. I'm going to address it immediately because it's a question that I get every single workshop that I do. And a lot of the individual and psychotherapy work that I do, I get the same question. For purposes of what we're trying to do with self-regulation, and self-regulation is the most important part of meditation. Under what conditions do we breathe through the mouth, Claude?
I was muted. If you are sick, for example, if we cannot breathe from the nose.
Well, usually the conditions that we breathe from the mouth are stress conditions. We're doing sports, we're tired, we're very stressed, there's a lot of emotion. We start breathing through your mouth. Okay. Your brain has networks associated to every single thing that you do. If you're breathing through your mouth, your brain is going to understand that there is a lion that's trying to eat you. Okay, that's not what you want. You do not want to engage in a stress process while you're trying to learn to calm yourself down. Okay, and many books, for example, in 2016, I don't know if it was the workshop that Maria Magdalena was in, but in 2016, a doctoral student in Lebanon brought to the workshop a textbook that she was using in the doctoral program. And the textbook said, breathe from the mouth. Haram. Do not breathe from the mouth. Breathe through the nose. And today what we're discussing is the basics of practice. And this is important. It's a practice. It's not that I'm going to go somewhere and I'm just going to get information and I'm going to read. If I do that, I'm not going to understand what the practice is. And this is why I'm also encouraging you to, while we're here in this webinar, to inhale as deeply as you can through your nose, noticing the distension of the abdominal cavity, and then exhaling very gently, very softly through the nose. So first off, Claude, if you're breathing through your mouth, your brain is understanding stress. If you're breathing through your nose, inhaling and exhaling, your brain is understanding it's time to calm down. So breathe in through your nose. I understand that there's many trainers out there, and this is important also. I don't think that any of you would go to a physician who has not gone to medical school. Would anybody go to a physician who has not gone to medical school? Anyone? Anyone? No, you wouldn't go. There are many people now that teach meditation because they want to make money. It doesn't mean that they know what it is that they are doing. And this is why the workshop is evidence-based. I have spent most of my life reading research, reading science. And I get people all the time who come in, like Claude, and they say, well, I went to a 4-day workshop and I paid $1,500 and we were breathing in through the mouth. And they come into me and we do what we're supposed to do, which is through the nose. And they say, well, why didn't they teach me this? Well, give me $1,500 and I'll explain it to you why they didn't teach you that. Okay. This is also important. You're going to get information from me. You're listening to me right now. You're going to get a book from me, which hopefully is going to be put in. And there's now an application there. The book that is in there speaks about the basics that we all need to know in order for meditation to work. So not only when we are breathing in through the nose or the mouth are we losing to stress. If you're breathing through the nose and you exhale through the nose, you're also recycling, okay, gases. What gases are you recycling? nitric oxide, which I'm not going to get into, but nitric oxide is an extremely powerful vasodilator. It expands the arteries, okay, which is the opposite of stress. With stress, contracts the arteries. So breathe in through the nose as deeply as you can and exhale through the nose very gently, very softly, as long as you can while we are in the workshop. So I'm a human. I like health. I like my own health. I like to be healthy because that means that when I work with my clients, with my patients, when I'm chatting with the people that I know, that I'm aware of myself. Our emotional load is extremely heavy. Those of you who are in Lebanon right now, you have been under duress for decades now. In the last few years, because of everything that you know that is happening there, things has just become much worse. People are suffering. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of mental illness. And there's a lot of illness in general, including physical illness. And with that, physical illness, most of our illness has to do with our emotional health. It does not have to do with I broke my leg. I'm not the one that's saying this. This is what research says. Up to 90% of our problems have to do with emotional health. They don't have to do with physical health. You know that we somatize. Somatization, we keep emotion into us, we carry that emotion with us, and then we start having neck aches and back aches and gastrointestinal problems and many, many, many other illnesses. And I'm actually going to ask Maria Magdalena, okay, so the book is there. The book is in English, it's in PDF. Some of the things that I'm going to mention today are in the book. For example, there is a genetic complex which humans have. That genetic complex, which is associated to inflammation in the body and the brain. Inflammation is what causes the wear and tear to every single organ and tissue in your body. That genetic complex is associated to over 100 different illnesses, of which 50% are cancers. When you're in a contemplative practice, when you're meditating, when you slow down, when you pause, that genetic complex is disconnected, it's stopped, it's minimized. But that only happens if you practice. Does anybody do sports? Anybody do sports?
A little bit.
What do you do, Rod?
Walking, just talking.
You do what? Fast walk. Wonderful. After you walk, how do you feel?
Yes, less stress, sure.
Less stress. Is it easy to motivate yourself to go out and walk?
Sometimes no.
Thank you for your honesty. So there are 4 basic things that we need. We need to eat, we need to drink, we need to sleep, and we need to breathe. In addition to that, social network, exercise, physical activity, spirituality. Let's look at exercise for a moment. I've asked you to inhale through the nose and exhale through the nose. How many people are practicing? Raise your hands if you're practicing inhaling and exhaling through the nose. So yes, wonderful, excellent, yes. Thank you, beautiful, excellent. So many people are practicing. It's easier here because you're here with me and I'm encouraging you to practice. But like Claude says, Claude, you know, she has to walk. This is something healthy for her. She has to motivate herself to go out and walk. Exercise is simple, it's not easy. Claude said, sometimes I don't want to do it. I have to motivate myself. I can share information with you. I can't make you practice. The only people that can make you practice is yourself. You are the ones that have to practice. It's a simple practice. I have to inhale and I have to exhale, but it's not an easy practice because I have to remember to do it. I also have to grow into it. One of the primary problems with teaching self-regulation, with teaching meditation, is that people become very impatient. People want to not feel what it is that they're feeling at the moment. And this is not what meditation does. Meditation is about a practice to get to know yourself, to get to know your emotional life, so that you can confront your emotional life in a healthier manner with tools which are going to help you facilitate your emotional life. Anybody here experience burnout at any point in your life? High levels of stress. Okay, so there are some people who have experienced burnout, high levels of stress. And I want to know, Claude, since you're the one that's participating, Claude, tell me, now that you've been breathing for about 5 minutes deeply, how do you feel?
Sorry.
Now that you have been breathing for about 5 minutes, how do you feel?
I feel better, of course.
You're sitting, you have to breathe.
Relax.
Well, that's something very important also, which Claude said, relax. Meditation is not about relaxation. Relaxation is a different state than being calm. When you do diaphragmatic breathing, when you meditate, you are going to experience muscular relaxation. You're going to experience relaxation of every single muscle in your body. But that's not what meditation is. Meditation leads to calm. Okay? Human, Homo sapiens, frontal cortex, mammal, middle brain, limbic system, reptile, brain stem. The frontal cortex and the cortex is the newest part of our brain. The middle brain, particularly an area called the amygdala, is about 450 million years old. The amygdala is where fight, flight, and freeze is located. Okay, fight, flight, and freeze is amygdala. There's another area to the amygdala and to the middle brain, which is calm and connect. Calm and connect, which when you're breathing diaphragmatically, such as you're doing right now, you are going to be calming and connecting to yourself. You have heard of emotional intelligence. The entire field of emotional intelligence is based on meditation. The entire field is based on meditation. Who is the person who popularized emotional intelligence? Anybody know?
Daniel Gottman.
Daniel Goleman, exactly.
Sorry.
Yes, Daniel Goleman, 1994, published the book in English called Emotional Intelligence. Daniel Goleman graduated from Harvard with a doctorate degree in clinical psychology in the early 70s. His doctoral dissertation was on stress and meditation, how to use meditation to manage stress. He spent a lot of time in Asia studying meditation. In the late 70s, in 1978, he published another book with another clinical psychologist who also graduated from Harvard, whose name is Davidson. And that book was comparing multiple types of meditation and what they do. So this is not new, and I'm focusing much more on the last 50 years of what the research says, rather than going back into some other aspects. Now, those aspects include cultural aspects. as a human being who respects other humans, who respects other cultures, who respects other ways of being, it's important to take into consideration other practices that people have. For example, it is very common throughout the world today for most people to grow up in houses, in households in which they pray. Prayer, particularly repetitive prayer, is a contemplative practice. It is a form of meditation. So that means that most people at some point in their life, because they grow up in a household in which prayer is part of the household, that they have learned to pray. What they have not learned to do is to breathe. What they have not learned to do is some of the basics of health and how breathing affects that health. Questions so far about anything I have shared with you? Yes, Claude. Thank you for asking questions.
Why are you repeating the same thing as a human? Why you are specifically using this word?
Because when people go to webinars or they go to conferences, there's this professional thing, which creates distance from the people around you. And this is why I'm focusing on being human. The contemplative practices is a humanizing practice. It makes you literally more human. Humans are about emotional states and thinking. We're not about thinking alone. Okay, professional life, let's talk about research, let's talk about science, statistics, data.
Okay, thank you.
Let's talk about humans. Let's talk about what makes us human. And when I say that these practices are used for humanization, it's literal. It's medical humanization. When they do these workshops with physicians and people who work in hospitals, what they find is that they interact with their patients more gently, more kindly, more humanly. If you're interacting with your patients as if they were human, how are they going to respond to you?
Mhm.
If you're treating your children, your spouse, your friends as a human, recognizing that they are full of emotion, recognizing that they have a history. For example, how many people in the workshop today from Lebanon were alive during the Civil War? What did those people experience during that Civil War? What have they experienced since the Civil War? Okay, we forget that people have histories, that people have pain, and this is why it's important to focus on this. Beatriz had a question. Beatriz?
Yes,
Yeah.
I wanted to see if I understood correctly the relationship between emotional intelligence and meditation.
Yes.
So when we breathe consciously, we can think more clearly and we can understand our emotions more clearly. That's the relationship, or is there something else?
Okay, thank you, Beatriz, for the question. So behavior, thoughts, and emotion. Behavior, thoughts, and emotion. Defensive function and defense mechanisms. We are so full of emotion, we're so full of stress that we live habitually. We're not aware of our life. We wake up, we eat breakfast, we take a shower, we go to work, we are with our families, we come back home, we have dinner, we speak a little bit, and we go to sleep. And this is our entire life. Because we don't learn to manage emotion when we are younger, when we're in school. Emotion is a mammalian reality. We're all mammals. We share a history with primates, bonobos, gorillas, orangutans, chimpanzees. We're part of the same world that they are in. A chimpanzee is not going to speak to you. A chimpanzee is going to feel. That feeling, that emotion is what's inside of us also. We have the capacity to think. So now that I know if I breathe deeply, I calm down. That's the first thing that happens. If I'm really stressed, if I'm tensed up, how pleasant is that? It's not pleasant at all. It's very unpleasant. I do not have tools to manage that unless I learn to deploy those tools. And I will give you an example from Iraq between 2016 and 2017. I was in Iraq working with International Committee of the Red Cross. I was in an office in Baghdad, the second largest office at that time in the world for the ICRC. And there was an older man who had been in the Iraqi military, who had fought against the Iranians. And there were a lot of other things happening there, complex trauma, anxiety, depression. I didn't know these things. I was just doing a workshop. So I'm doing the workshop. Most people have their eyes closed. Are you breathing?
Yep.
Are you breathing diaphragmatically? Okay, good. I'm glad that you're breathing diaphragmatically. I saw in my workshops, most of the work is done with our eyes closed, because that way you can focus on yourself when you're practicing. I saw that they were moving around, they were a little bit anxious, and that they were having difficulty, and their face, it started tensing up, it started contorting, and it was from pain. So I went over to them and I put my hand on their shoulder and I spoke very gently to them. I stood them up. I showed them how to breathe, because at that point, they were so overwhelmed with the emotion that they were experiencing, emotion that was their history, that they just couldn't calm down, self-regulation. I taught them, I stood by them while they practiced. I saw that they were learning it. I saw the change in their face. The face became very smooth, all the muscles relaxed, the shoulders came down, the jaw unclenched. Person sat down, they started. When we asked for feedback, this person said that they were taking multiple medications, psychiatric medications, including very powerful anxiolytics such as Xanax. And this was a medication that they took every single day. It was the first time in 30 years, the first time in 30 years that this person was able to self-regulate using breathing, just breathing, just breathing. Going back to Beatriz, we are emotional animals. We have emotion. That emotion drives us, but we carry it with us. When you're sitting at home at 9 p.m. at night, you have some food in your fridge, you have a place to sleep. Why should you be stressed? Okay. You should be a little bit stressed, but too much is what we permit ourselves. We carry too much and we continue loading too much into ourselves. When you breathe deeply, you can separate thinking, emotion, and behavior. If you're not breathing deeply, if you're not self-regulating, they get confused. And then we can't assess or evaluate what it is that we're experiencing and how to act upon it. Example, if I'm having a discussion with my partner and my partner is not understanding and I'm starting to get irritated, which most of you have probably experienced at this point in your life. I start getting frustrated. I don't know how to manage myself. I start getting angry. Who am I going to put this on? It's my emotion, my frustration, my anger. I'm going to transmit it to the person who is in front of me, in this case, my partner. My partner is then going to get frustrated, get irritated, maybe get angry, and it's going to escalate. And it's going to lead to conflict. On the other hand, if I am aware that my emotional state is going to be calmer, if I breathe diaphragmatic, not only is my emotional state going to be calmer, the speed of thought, we're thinking. The angrier we get, the faster we think. The more frustrated we are, the faster we think. It's the hamster in the wheel, okay? If you breathe deeply, you're gonna be calm. And then you're gonna be thinking, okay, so I understand that I'm becoming frustrated. I understand that when I'm frustrated, my tone of voice starts going up. I'm frustrated because they're not understanding what it is that I'm trying to communicate. Now, this is all about me. It's not about the other person. If I recognize my emotion, I can intervene at that point, calm myself down, and then decide how I'm going to interact. If I'm with my partner and I'm becoming frustrated, the first thing that I do is that I'm going to lower my tone of voice as I breathe deeply. I am then going to very carefully choose how it is that I'm going to communicate with them. If I want to facilitate communication with my partner, then I have to be gentle and kind with myself, firstly, before I am gentle and kind with my partner. If my tone of voice changes, if I'm using my mammal and my human, pardon me, not my mammal, and why am I pointing at my forehead? Anger, frustration, irritation, impatience, middle brain, amygdala, okay? I don't want to behave like a mammal. I don't want to behave like an animal with the people around me. I don't want to behave like an animal with myself. I want to behave as a human. If I am in a state of anger, impatience, frustrations, irritation, a state of negative emotion, I'm going to be in the mammal. I'm not going to be in the human. And this is literal. Once we start getting angry, frustrated, sad, irritated, impatient, I start breathing here, which is going to make me even more irritated, impatient, etc. And literally, the cerebral spinal fluid in your brain, when you're in a negative state, it goes from the human to the mammal. You're going to get less oxygen here, less minerals here, less glucose here. It's all going to go here. Not only does it go here, the more I am in the amygdala, the more I am in the mammal, the stronger the mammal becomes. And I'm going to say this clearly, and I hope that you understand it and take it as it is. Most of you are mammals. You have not potentiated this. And I'm not saying that in a negative manner. What I'm saying is we have a lot of work still to do in ourselves, in understanding ourselves, in understanding how it is that we can be more human, Claude, and less like a mammal and less like a professional. Take into account that we have emotions, we have a history, and we deserve to give ourselves a break and give the people in front of us a break also. So the only way I can directly manage my emotion is through self-regulation. That's the only way. You cannot think emotion away. You cannot decrease your emotional state only by thinking. And this is the entire base of cognitive therapy. Cognitive therapy is about the way we think. One of the major researchers in cognitive therapy, whose books are used for mental health professionals throughout the world. His last name is Barlow. About 20 years ago, he started incorporating mindfulness, meditation, self-regulation into his model, and it works beautiful. Questions about anything I have said so far? Yes, Claude.
Is it the same technique as the self-awareness, or it's different?
That's also a very good question. And I'm going to go back to the basics. Meditation is two things, breathing and focus. The more deeply that I breathe, which means the less times per minute I breathe. On average, humans breathe 14 to 20 times per minute. 14 to 20 times per minute. When we're sleeping, or actually when we're meditating, when we're praying, most yoga is 12 times per minute. When we are sleeping, it's 10 times per minute. The practices that I do, we go to 3 breaths a minute. 3. And Claude just became surprised. There are several people in the workshop, in this webinar, who have been doing this. One person who would volunteer to say something about the 3 or less breaths a minute. Who would like to say something? Beatriz, Maria Magdalena. Maria Magdalena did a face-to-face workshop with me in 2016, I think. And she's also the one that has organized this. And we met about 12 times between September and November last year with a group from Holy Cross, right? No, not Holy Cross.
No,
Pardon me.
from Al Najat village, the
Well,
NGO.
right, but the students were from,
Excuse
where were
me.
the students where they were from?
Were from two universities,
Okay.
ISAC and UL, Lebanese
Okay,
University
beautiful.
and ISAC.
So would anybody like to say, anybody? Come on, Maria Magdalena, I think you're gonna have to.
Beatrice just unmuted herself.
Yes,
Okay, go ahead.
I have to say it's a very special experience because we don't usually experience this slow breathing outside of sleep, which we're not aware of. So you're more relaxed than when you're sleeping, when you breathe this way.
Yes, and Beatriz, I'm gonna say something. So even though Beatriz participated in this workshop that we were doing last year, Beatriz just said you're more relaxed. And it's important to also think about the language. These practices are about calming myself down so that emotion does not overwhelm me and I start behaving like an animal towards myself or towards others. Behavior change, habit change comes when we pause. And that pause is more powerful when we're breathing less times per minute. In most of the workshops that I have done, most people, 99% of the people in the workshops, within the first 4 hours, go to 3 breaths or less per minute. You all have capacity, but you're not aware of the capacity you have because you just have not explored it, as Beatriz just said. Okay, if you get training like we're discussing right now, and you go through the workshop, you are going to understand this. Why am I saying it in that manner? Right now, we're in a very hypothetical very theoretical moment. Claude knows what it's like to walk because she walks for exercise. Claude, are you a meditator? Do you meditate?
Very, yes.
What is it like to meditate? What do you feel?
Sometimes in another space.
Describe that space for us.
Peace, calm, as you say,
Exactly. Beautiful.
and love.
Beautiful. And love for whom?
I don't know, for everyone, for everybody,
for
for
your-
everything in this world.
Beautiful. And I'm happy that you also meditate and that you have experienced that. But let's look at self-regulation. Self-regulation, breathing 3 times or less. The less times per minute we breathe, the calmer we are. And I noticed, Claude, that you use the word calm. Excellent. The less times per minute we breathe, the calmer we are. Okay. Why 3 breaths or less? We have a fire inside of us. And breathing 3 times or less per minute is throwing water on that fire. It calms us down. Very powerful. But doing it once, doing it twice, doing it 3 times is not enough. Meditation, conscious breathing is a daily practice. Eating, drinking, breathing, sleeping. You sleep, hopefully, more than 7 hours a night. You eat, hopefully, at least 3 times a day. You drink liquids throughout the day, and hopefully you're breathing throughout the day. But now, from this point onward, you're going to be breathing a little bit more deeply from the diaphragm, inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the nose, inhaling and exhaling through the nose. And what that is going to permit you to do is to experience what Claude has just mentioned: peace, a coherence, degrees of love, which stress beats it out of us. Other questions, comments before we continue? Other questions, comments before we continue?
Yes, I want to give an example
Please.
of another type of experience. I remember I already gave this example during our previous workshop.
Yes.
One time I had to have a cold shower, and in order to feel less uncomfortable, I started breathing in this manner that we're talking about. And I was feeling more comfortable and less cold, and I was able to continue the shower very, very normally without feeling uncomfortable and cold and in pain. So I also like to use this breathing technique in stressful situations.
Okay. Beatriz, what was the rest of the day like when you decided to use the breathing for a cold shower?
The shower was more enjoyable than the usual, because usually we feel better after showering, and that time it was like twice the effect.
Okay.
So, and it was towards the night, so it also
Okay.
affected the sleeping
Okay. How did it affect the sleeping?
positively, of course.
Okay. So let's use this example: pleasant and unpleasant. Beatriz said cold shower initially was unpleasant. I decided that I was going to deploy diaphragmatic breathing as I have been learning. in the cold shower. As I practiced diaphragmatic breathing in a cold shower, which I was defining as unpleasant, it became pleasant. My breathing, my desire, my will to practice, to deploy diaphragmatic breathing turned an unpleasant experience into a pleasant experience. How many times do we define experiences as unpleasant? How many times do we leave experiences because we're so full of emotion that we want to flee, we want to run away? Think about emotional conversations in which a lot of stress is involved. We avoid them. We don't want to talk about them. If I calm myself down, I can approach it. And I'll give you another example. Focus. I was working with a professional who had to write reports every single day in Iraq. I had challenged them to do the practice. They came in, they remembered to practice before lunch. They calmed down, they went into the lunchroom, they had a good lunch. They went to work. They breathed while they were on the computer, working on their reports, reporting on prisons and prisoners. Okay. While they were working, they noticed that they didn't smoke. They did not go to smoke because they were calm. They were more focused because they were self-regulating that emotion. They finished their work about an hour and a half earlier than they usually did. They then went to the park to exercise. They then slept very well that night. And this is important. It was the end of the week. It was Thursday. These are people who work 12 to 14 hours a day. A lot of stress. They decided to self-regulate. That self-regulation permitted them to focus more on the work because they weren't distracted by what was happening in their head and what was happening outside. That allowed them to finish their work more early. Usually they would not go to work out because they would be too tired and too stressed. This permitted them to go work out. The workout helped them reduce the stress. It also helped them sleep better that night. So what I do right now by breathing deeply is going to have an effect for the rest of the day. But this is training, okay? With the group, with Maria Magdalena, we were doing 16 hours. We did 16 hours, 6 hours. The original workshop is a 35-hour workshop. And why is this important? An hour to manage, to learn about yourself, to learn about emotion is not enough time because this is also practice. Most of the time that we were together, we were practicing, not theory. You can read theory, but the practice with feedback is what is going to be key to your experience of health in general. Let me see, somebody's asking your questions. Right. So Cinderella, if you can read it because it's for everybody, I'm just going to read it. If I was focusing and practicing on breathing every day, but it happens some days I can't remove all the stress and negative emotions. This is about calming yourself down so that you're not overwhelmed with emotion. Stress is normal. We need stress in life. Stress drives us, it motivates us, it helps us accomplish things. What we don't want to get too much into is negative stress. So for example, Sandrella, If I come home from work and I sit down and I do 15 minutes of metabolic breathing, which is taking three or less breaths per minute, that's going to create a lot of space in me. But if I do 3 or less, what that's going to do, it's going to prevent me from accumulating stress. It's going to discharge. I'm not going to get rid of everything. Why? Because you're carrying around a lot of things which are not from today, which are not from yesterday, which are not from 1 year ago. We're carrying things from our history, which might be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. And we're accumulating. And that accumulation does not permit us to interact with others in a healthy way. It does not permit us to experience an emotional life full of health. So, Sandrella, this is not about getting rid of everything. It's about decreasing so that you can feel your emotion and then manage it in a healthier manner. But you have to practice, and you have to practice, and you have to observe yourself, and you have to practice, and you have to observe yourself. And you also then have to read. You have to read a lot. The book that is there, that I shared with you, has basics in it.
Yes, I'm reading a lot. Yes, but it's the first time it happened with me.
What?
To feel like the negative emotion. It's the first time. It's not so because of that I'm asking the question. Is it normal? Because it was the first time. I'm practicing a lot. I'm practicing three times per day, and it's good for me. I feel better. But it's the first time from 1 week I felt this negative emotion. I don't know why.
Yes.
So
I
asking you. Yes.
Yes. I think I misunderstood the question, and thank you for being assertive and clarifying that.
Yes.
So when we start meditating, your defensive functioning starts going down, your defense mechanisms, which means that your emotion, your history of emotional life is much more present.
Yes.
Which is what happened to that gentleman in Iraq when he started learning. He started having emotion come out.
Yeah.
If you self-regulate, breathing 3 times or less, you're going to calm down. Now, 3 times or less is formal practice. It's not what I'm doing with you right now. Okay, what I'm doing with you right now is about speaking, but how do I speak? I breathe deeply while I'm speaking to you. I take that moment so that I can be focused and be here with you and not be in my head, as many times we are. We are in our head. We're not paying attention to the people who are in front of us. We're not paying attention to our habits. We're just going over stuff that's in there, in our head, in our brain. Questions, comments, concerns?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Questions?
It's an idea.
Yes.
Maybe to feel that we are not the problem. The problem, if we can take it out of ourselves, I don't know if I can explain more, but we are not the problem. The problem is something else. That's why we can separate ourselves from our stress, the problems and everything.
Yesterday, I had a session in which I was training somebody to breathe, to self-regulate. They're coming from a very chaotic life, very difficult decisions to make. And what they felt, which they had not felt in several years, they felt calm, they felt empowered, they felt in control of the emotion that they were experiencing. If I'm too much into the emotion, if I focus too much on the negative emotion, it's going to suck me in. It's going to drag me in. Rather than taking a couple of steps backwards, breathing, and taking distance from that emotion. How do I disengage from my negative emotional state? First thing you do, practice, is to breathe diaphragmatically. To breathe diaphragmatically. That's going to give me that distance to observe myself, to observe the person who's in front of me, and to observe the interaction between both people. If I am observing myself, if I am conscious about what is happening within myself, I can again decide how I want to approach this, rather than automatically behaving as I usually have behaved. So yes, Claude, what it does, it gives you a degree of distance from your emotional life so that you can use your your thinking capacity to evaluate what it is that you're experiencing and how best to intervene at that point. Did I answer your question, Claude? Did I address it? Yes, thank you. Other questions, comments?
Dr. Paul, can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
In our days, we are so busy, and also we all need to calm down and to practice self-regulation. How to do this in our so busy days? Our program is full charge every day. Can you give us tools, something easy that we can do every day in order to become more calm and self-regulated?
Thank you, Hilda, for the question. Who would like to answer that?
I have an idea.
Yes.
While showering, while driving, while doing things, you don't have to set a time sitting doing nothing and only breathing. You can do it while doing other stuff, while eating, before you sleep. So you can do it anytime you want, even if you're busy.
Excellent, Beatrice and Hilda. So we have to breathe. We breathe throughout the day. We know that if you breathe more deeply, you're going to experience more calm. If you're calmer, you're not going to be as impatient. You're not going to be as frustrated. You're not going to be as angry. You're not going to be as irritated. You can breathe. If I'm working with somebody, as I just shared with you, and I'm here speaking, but at the same time that I'm speaking, I breathe deeply. And I'm consistently self-regulating because that's going to permit me to use my human brain to facilitate an emotional change. If you're transporting yourself to work, you're transporting yourself to work. What else are you doing? I can breathe deeply. If you're listening to somebody at work, while you're listening to somebody at work, you can breathe deeply. What I'm referring to right now is conscious breathing. Conscious breathing is different than a formal practice of 8 minutes, 10 minutes, 4 days. Conscious breathing, as Beatrice mentioned, I can practice anywhere. I can practice while I'm taking a shower. I can practice while I'm in the car. I can practice while I'm listening to people. I can even practice at times when I'm speaking, as I am speaking to you right now. How many people are lost? Raise your hand. Anybody? The reason I'm asking is because, as I said earlier, Melissa is lost. Yes, thank you, Melissa, for being assertive and being honest. Melissa, where did Melissa go? Melissa?
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Melissa, there. Melissa, why are you lost? What's going on?
Oh, long story. We are in Lebanon. We're
Yes.
Lebanese, so we're
Yes.
lost.
So from what I've been sharing with you, how is this making sense or not making sense to you?
Well, I saw myself so related to the part that sometimes while working, I forgot to breathe. So at the end of the day, I see, oh God, I forgot to breathe today. So, well, I have to practice more about it. Because while doing this session, while breathing, I felt that the calm that we are talking about.
Congratulations. Congratulations, Melissa.
Thank you for it. It's because of you. You're the one.
Thank you, but it's you. I'm not breathing. You're breathing. Okay, that's it.
Yes, but you're the one who motivated me to do that.
I'm glad, and again, I'll take it, and I hope that you can continue. There's actually research, Melissa, in offices. So I wake up, not I, but let's say I wake up, some person. I wake up, I start thinking about what I'm going to do through the day, which is stress. I eat, I go to work, and as soon as I sit in front of the computer, they did research with people who have to go to work and they sit in front of the computer, and then they start loading the emails, and there are hundreds of emails that are loaded. What they found is that people stop breathing, literally stop breathing while they're in the computer at 9:30 a.m. Why is that? I go like this because it's stress. Now, if I'm tense at 9 a.m., how am I going to be at 1 p.m.? How am I going to be at 3 p.m.? How am I going to be at 8 p.m.? You're going to be stressed. If, on the other hand, I practice diaphragmatic breathing, and I continue practicing diaphragmatic breathing throughout the day consciously, I'm continuously self-regulating, which again permits me to look at my thoughts, my emotion, and my behavior. Why did I ask if anybody was lost? Because this is theoretical. Unless we were sitting doing a workshop and you're practicing, you're not going to understand. And this is key. I have been practicing most of my life. I understand what the practice is. Claude knows what walking is. She understands walking because she practices walking. If somebody eats vegetables and you eat vegetables every single day, you understand what eating vegetables is about. The conscious breathing leads to better meditation. People don't like to meditate because they don't know what to do with the emotion that comes out. If you're more self-regulated, you're gonna be able to spend more time in meditation. And those longer periods of meditation are going to start changing your brain, literally changing your brain, so that you are coming from greater calm. But this is also, you have to do longer practices. A 10-minute practice is wonderful. It's better than nothing, but it's not enough. And this is why it's also simple, not easy. Melissa, was it Melissa?
Yes, it was me.
Yes, Melissa. Now
Yes.
that you are breathing diaphragmatically and that you've noticed that you're calmer,
Yeah.
what do you think about breathing?
Well, I It's the easiest, I guess, way to relax through the day.
Had you, had
And
you,
it's
had
free
you,
of charge.
yeah, had you ever practiced diaphragmatic breathing for about an hour?
No, not at all.
And again, you're a captive audience right now. You decided that you wanted to be in the webinar.
Yes.
I have asked you to practice. Some of you have practiced, and now you see how you feel.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we were in here and we did 15 minutes of metabolic breathing, you would see something different. If we did 30 minutes of body scan, you would see something different. If we did 15 minutes of observation of thoughts, you would see something different. Now, I'm going through the basics of meditation, in which you have to sit and practice and get feedback and practice and get feedback and practice. This is why longer training is more important. Okay?
Yes. Affirmative.
We
Beautiful.
have someone in the chat asking, saying something, Celine.
Yes. Theoretically, it seems possible, but practicing conscious breathing while also consciously listening to someone, it is hard. I know because I do it. But the more you practice, what happens? So listening, or, well, let's say listening. I'm listening to somebody, and I'm trying to integrate a new practice, which is conscious breathing while I'm listening. Because I'm doing two things, it might be a little awkward. But the more I practice, the more I practice, the more I practice, the more I practice, they become one. But I have to practice. It is a simple practice. It is not an easy practice, because I have to remember to practice. Questions? Questions, please, questions.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Yes, when I was, if I'm increasing the, I'm practicing a lot of breathing every day. So, but I have, we have a problem. I have a problem. Yeah, if I'm increasing the breathing and the practicing, the stress is increasing also. Yeah, we live here a lot of stress. I'm working with a lot of people who increase their stress. So I am practicing a lot. And I'm asking myself, if I'm not practicing, it will be the catastrophe. We face a lot of stressed people. So there is another thing. Practicing is a good. So I have to practice more than 3 times per day. The
No.
stress is a lot about
Right. So
around us.
So Sandrella was part of the workshop last year, and she has been practicing quite a bit. And this is why important to get feedback from somebody who understands. I have been practicing for more than 40 years. I started practicing when I was 8 years old. I'm 43 years old. I also read about this, read the research. What you have to do or practice is that you have to see what is happening in my life. Why is it that I'm still getting overwhelmed? Because this is what I'm hearing. There's a lot of stress around me, and it's affecting me. Okay. Conscious breathing, and then do longer practices. There's also something which we started doing in the workshop, which is loving kindness meditation. Have you been practicing loving kindness, compassion meditation?
Meditation.
Loving
Not
kindness,
like breathing.
yeah, loving kindness
Breathing
and
more.
compassion. Yeah, so this is important. We did look at it. We haven't done it enough in the workshop.
Yes.
There are different types of meditation. And each meditation is going to contribute something different to your health. And this is also why this is learning. You have to learn, you have to read, you have to explore, you have to practice. You have to ask questions as you have been doing in here. And this is why I also said earlier that it's very theoretical. Unless you practice, you're not going to understand. So what I'm going to suggest is to maybe do some more loving kindness, compassion meditation, which I did share with you. I have your email, you can write me, and I can share some information with you, some practices that you can do in loving kindness, compassion, okay? Did I answer your question?
Compassion. Yes, yes.
Compassion meditation,
Okay.
okay? Mariel?
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
In fact, I was registered last year in the workshop and I used to watch the recordings. I couldn't be with you live and I'm practicing occasionally. But the problem I have is I'm practicing like meditation and breathing techniques like since now 4 years. But the problem is I keep yawning and feeling so sleepy while breathing. The person who gave me the first workshops is saying that it might be because of my unhealthy lifestyle, and he's saying that with practicing I can get over it, but it's not working. Every time I start breathing, I want to make it like longer, and it's impossible. I feel sleep.
Okay.
Every time it's the case.
So there is a enormous problem with sleep deprivation around the world. Period.
In fact, I'm not, I don't know, I sleep like 7 hours a day.
Good. But so let me, there's a huge problem with sleep deprivation around the world.
Right.
That also means it's not only sleep deprivation, it's the quality of sleep. I'm going to hypothesize that most Lebanese are not getting quality of sleep. Most Lebanese are not getting quality of sleep because of all the reasons that you know. So what does that mean? It means that you're not getting the restorative sleep. You're not going into rapid eye movement sleep. And there's research which clearly reflects this. Cortisol is a stress hormone. If it is that you're not self-regulating throughout the day, you're going to have excessive amounts of cortisol in your system when you go to sleep. If you have too much cortisol in your system, it's like drinking coffee. If you have too much coffee, your quality of sleep is going to be affected. If you have too much cortisol, you're not going to get deep sleep. You're not going to get REM sleep. And some people are going to continuously wake up. So Marielle, let me see if I got this straight. When you start meditating, you start yawning.
Yeah.
Correct? Okay,
Right.
so is the problem yawning?
No, tearing and yawning, and
Okay.
I just try to make it longer.
Okay.
And
So,
it's impossible. It's like impossible. Even if I'm sitting, not laying down.
Yawning is perfectly normal.
And tearing too much.
Well, but hold on, yawning. If I'm going to sleep and I'm laying in bed, I might be yawning while I'm in bed. Okay. When you're breathing, you're going from 14 to 20 times a breath per minute to 12 or 10 times per minute. You're going to be calmer.
Yeah.
You're going to start yawning. Eventually, what's going to happen to the yawning?
It's like it should be lower,
It's going to decrease.
decrease. Yeah.
It is going to decrease. The tearing. Are you tearing because you're sad, because you're expressing emotion, or do tears just come out because they're just coming out?
Yeah, maybe I'm controlling them so they're coming out when I'm breathing.
When you're in a state of calm, which you achieve through meditation, it is very common to tear.
Yeah.
Okay, because tearing is a sign of calmness
Okay.
in the central nervous system. Perfectly normal. The
Okay.
yawning is perfectly normal also. If you permit yourself to continue practicing, yawning is going to decrease.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
I want to continue practicing, but it's impossible because it's each time I start breathing, I fall asleep. I sleep like it's impossible more than 10 minutes.
diaphragmatic breathing is the most powerful sleep
Diaphragmatic.
inducer known to is the most powerful sleep inducer known to science. So what can you do to not fall asleep?
Yeah, I don't know. Every time I was watching the recordings, when you gave us like the long exercises, I've never finished them. I've never.
Were
It
you
was, like,
laying down? Were you
impossible.
sitting down?
Sitting down,
Okay. Did you have your eyes open or your eyes closed?
closed.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Okay, I will try.
Yeah. You're
Okay,
not going to
thank
fall
you.
asleep if your eyes are open.
Yeah, but I cannot control them.
Yes, you can. If you're telling yourself, I can't,
Yeah, this is it. Maybe I'm
You're-
telling myself. Yeah.
you're not going to be able to do it. So what I'm going to suggest, you sit and you're sitting in a comfortable position and pick a spot. So look down, maybe look down on the table, at a spot on the table, and just very gently
Okay.
look at the spot, or focus on a single spot, on a single thing, and breathe. What's going to happen then is that you're not going to fall asleep. It's also very common for people when they're learning to fall asleep. Very common. But the more you practice, you're not going to fall asleep. Maria Magdalena was saying, yes. Can you address that, Maria Magdalena? Why were you falling asleep?
While reading or while studying, yeah, we do fall asleep if we are tired, if we are
Yes.
already tired.
Yes.
So I think you are right about the restorative sleep. What do you think, Marielle? What do you think about your quality of sleep? You are muted.
Love sleeping. It's like my number one hobby. But no. Yeah, and I sleep very well, very deep, and I dream a lot. I'm like a pro, sleeping pro. That's why it's bothering me when I want to breathe and take advantage of a long time of breathing.
Yeah.
How about she combine the exercises with another hobby like walking?
Yes, there are. So again, health, eating, drinking, sleeping, breathing. If you're hungry, what's going to happen to your focus?
It will go directly to food.
If you're sleepy, if you haven't slept, if you are not drinking, your focus is going to be impacted. So eat, try to be rested, drink liquid, and then start practicing. There are 4 positions for meditation: sitting,
Okay.
standing, movement, and laying down.
Okay.
What Maria Magdalena said, and I saw something hiking. I love to hike. I lived in Colorado, where the Rocky Mountains are. That's where I studied and lived 10 years. I go there. I've been going there since 2015, several times a year to do workshops. And I hike. While I'm hiking, I breathe. Most athletes, most professional athletes today get breath training. They get meditation training because it's about performance enhancement. Your performance improves when you're more self-regulated, when you're more focused. Okay. And there's much more to that also. So what I'm going to suggest is to try to meditating with your eyes open.
Okay.
And to look at one spot.
To focus to a point.
Right.
Okay.
And then the quality of breath. Marielle, did you do metabolic breathing? 3 or less breaths per minute. Okay, beautiful. Recognize. Okay, I am feeling impatient. I am focused on I recognize I'm feeling impatient. I accept I'm feeling impatient. I'm going to let the impatience go, and I'm going to focus on the exhalation.
Yeah, I bring it back.
Are you using a word?
And very long exhalation. Yeah, it's like a prayer.
Beautiful. Okay. But I would say again, focus on 3 breaths or less. If you start becoming impatient, impatience inhibits practice. Impatience inhibits practice. The more deeply you breathe, the less impatient you become, or the more patient you become. The more you're going to stay in the practice if you breathe diaphragmatically, 3 breaths or less. So, Marielle, did I address your questions?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So here somebody said, theoretically, it seems possible, but practice conscious breathing. Oh, no, I already read that. Can we do it all day long? I do conscious breathing all day long. It's not every single breath that I take, but I consciously breathe all day long. Why? Because I want to be emotionally intelligent. I want to be emotionally flexible. I want to be able to be present with whomever I am connecting with. I want to be healthy. So this is why I practice. Raquel had a question.
Hi, how are you? Yep.
Hello.
Here from Panama. I'm one of the lucky ones to have Paul here locally when he doesn't travel. I just wanted to ask Marielle, does she usually does the meditation or the conscious respiration laying down, or maybe she can be helped by sitting down? Maybe if she sits down, she's gonna be probably less sleepy.
Yes.
And what's wrong if we get sleepy anyway? Because I like when I fall
tried
asleep.
doing it while sitting. Yeah, right. First, in the beginning, I used to lay down to do the body scan, then start breathing. Then I started sitting down. When Paul first told us you can sit down and do the breathing, I used to position that helped me sleeping.
Marielle, we can't hear you. You can take the camera. You can shut the camera down.
And not always while laying down.
We can't hear you very well.
Sorry.
Okay.
Excuse me for the bad connection.
Paul,
yes.
Can I ask? I really, if I fall asleep, I don't I don't worry too much about it. Should I? because I
well,
really enjoy it if I fall asleep.
yes, and sleep is very important. If you're using it for sleep, wonderful. But using it for sleep and falling asleep is going to cut down on your practice time.
I see.
Right now, most of us, when we're learning, we have to do longer practices while awake. 15, 20, 30, 1 hour longer practices. Okay, and
Maybe
that's going to happen.
maybe Mariel is tired,
Maybe she's tired,
or
and
too
many
much
people.
stress that doesn't let her
Yes,
her brain be
yes,
yeah, less tired.
most definitely.
Because stress also
Right.
also tires us.
Yes,
Yes,
it does.
you're right, Raquel. Yeah.
Okay, so
I could be tired.
other questions? Other questions? Yes, Claude.
Is there any correlation between food and this technique? Should we take specific food?
No.
No. Anything we can, carbs and everything we can eat.
Yes, what does happen, for example, this is used for changing habits of eating.
Yeah.
It's used with eating disorders. If you are calmer before you eat, you absorb more nutrients. So many people in Lebanon, they're eating, but because they're stressed, they're not absorbing nutrients. Ask any nutritionist, and they will tell you. If you're more self-regulated, research reflects you're going to make better choices, healthier choices of the food. You're going to eat less, which all contribute to your health. Okay.
Is it scientifically proven?
Pardon me?
Is it scientifically proven?
Yes. Okay. Everything that I share with you, everything is research-based. Everything. Okay. And when I'm talking research-based, there are 20,000 research studies with meditation at minimum. At minimum. Mm-hmm. Okay. They've been doing this since at least the 1950s. And in the 1930s, there were people in Europe already doing this also. And if I go back to religion, okay, most the Abrahamic religions, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, all of those religions pray at least 5 times a day. Yeah. Why? Calm down, calm down, calm down. So,
Paul,
yes.
I remember you told us that there are certain maybe drinks or food we should avoid before starting the exercise.
Yes. In general, because we're already very activated, anything having to do with caffeine, coffee, tea, chocolate, so particularly coffee, because people drink a lot of coffee and tea. You can drink herbal teas, but if you're drinking coffee and then sitting down to meditate, it's going to be counterproductive. You're going to be very accelerated. I love coffee. I drink coffee. I had coffee this morning, and then I tried to meditate. And I was meditating, but I could also feel the effect of the coffee on me. Let's see. There was a question down here. When I'm practicing deep breathing for like 15 minutes, and this is a Yara, I start feeling anger and feel a need to move on. If I push myself to keep doing the exercise, I start breathing short breath and feel the need to stop. Thank you, Yara, for sharing what you experience, including the emotion you experience. Earlier today, I mentioned this. when you're in a contemplative practice, emotion starts coming out. Emotion, anger starts coming out. Do you have a reason to be angry in Lebanon? Yes, you have very good reasons to be angry. Okay, and that's just one emotion of many emotions. Okay, so Yara, what do I recommend? I recognize that I am feeling angry. I accept the anger. I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to refocus on the exhalation, the word at exhalation, and continue practicing that. Continue practicing that at the beginning. After that, if you want to practice, if you want to meditate, okay, what is making you angry? So just breathe and think. While you're breathing deeply, let the thoughts come into your brain. What's making me angry? And kind of breathe deeply with the things that are making you angry. And there's much more. Sadly, we can't get into all of that because it's just not enough time. But Yara, if you practice, if you permit yourself to continue practicing, that anger is going to decrease continuously. If you practice, this is used for anger management, and it's been used for anger management for at least 30 years. They use this in prisons where there's a lot of people with anger, and it works beautifully. Okay, other questions?
Dr. Paul, I have two questions, please.
Yes.
Number one, while practicing meditation, I have a lot of thoughts that come to into my mind, and it's hard to stop thinking. It's very hard to stop thinking. And what can I do to help myself? And then the meditation will be better if I stop thinking while practicing meditation. That's number one. Number two, I think someone told us about an experience, the cold shower. She didn't feel pain, but I don't understand how she didn't feel pain in a cold shower only due to breathe to the breath, to breathing. How?
Okay, so the first question, and thank you, Hilda, for asking. The more deeply you breathe, the slower your thought process. The slower your thought process, the easier to redirect your thought process. Focus. If I'm focusing on negative emotion, if I'm focusing on thoughts, and I permit myself to focus on that, my heart rate is going to increase. I'm going to become uncomfortable. I'm not going to want to necessarily continue meditating. If I permit myself to practice, I recognize I'm focusing on these negative thoughts, on this negative emotion. I accept it, I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to gently refocus on the exhalation. This is very powerful, but I have to permit myself to practice as I have been describing. And I want to point out, many of the questions today have been about how do I practice to permit myself to practice longer. The quality of the breathing, the less times you breathe per minute, the better the practice is going to be. If you practice repeating to yourself every time that your mind wanders, recognize, accept, let go, refocus, practice. You have 5 neural networks in your brain associated to focus. If you practice focusing, as I am describing it to you, it's going to be much easier. But you have to breathe deeply and you have to practice, as I'm telling you, recognize, accept, let go, and refocus. What was the second question, Hilda?
About the cold shower and she didn't feel pain.
Right. So there is there was one system of pain which has historically been recognized, and it's a system having to do with opioids, internally produced opioids, which is why we also get opioids for pain. Emotional pain and physical pain are next to each other on the brain. Remember when mammals don't get hurt. Oh my God, what you said hurt me so much. Mammals don't do that. Mammals get hurt when they get physically hurt. Okay. But for us, emotional hurt feels physical. The opioid system is one system. Now they have discovered there's another system for pain, which is managed through meditation. And I'm gonna write something here down. Fadel Zeidan. Fadel Zeidan. If you look up Fadel Zeidan, PhD, you're gonna find his webpage. You're gonna find his research. Read his research, and he's going to explain it much better because we just don't have time to do it. What the research does say, if I practice, emotional pain decreases, physical pain decreases. This is used for people who have chronic pain issues. And I used it with people who have broken their back in 2 different places and have chronic back pain, amongst other things. It works for pain if I permit myself to work. Uncomfortable or unpleasant situations. If I'm in an uncomfortable or an unpleasant conversation, it doesn't mean I have to leave. I have to manage the unpleasant situation. If I leave the unpleasant situation, I don't learn how to manage the unpleasant situation. And that unpleasant, I'm defining it as unpleasant. If I decide to stay and I breathe, I learn that my perception of my experience has changed, which permits me to enjoy things much better. How many times throughout the day do we find ourselves not liking certain things? Oh, I don't want to eat that. Oh, I already did this. Oh, no. Okay, let me see how I can enjoy what I'm doing more. How can I enjoy the cold shower? How can I enjoy the uncomfortable conversation? How can I enjoy going out running in 45-degree weather? I can permit myself to sit with my discomfort. If I don't sit with my discomfort, if I don't breathe with my discomfort, I'm not learning how to manage that discomfort, which is usually emotion. Henrietta.
Hey, yes, hello. I
Hello.
want to share something with you.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, about pain, Since I believe in breathing, but I'm not practicing a lot, but I used to hike a lot. But a while before, I experienced a pain in my chest and in the same place on my back. So I was so scared because I smoke. So I start breathing day and night every time. And I went to do all the checkup and all the stuff needed. But what my doctor said, when nothing was wrong, but he told me your chest is full of nicotine. But when he checked my breathing, he was like shocked. you are lying. You're not smoking. Nothing wrong with your breathing. And before I start to take my the medicine, like antidepressant he gave me, because of the breathing, the pain start to increase. يعني. So, Anna, I believe that the breathing helped me a lot. So what do you think?
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, yes, if even if you're a smoker, if you're exercising your lungs, the lungs become more flexible. Smoking makes the lungs stiff. Breathing diaphragmatically makes the lungs flexible.
Yeah.
It, of course,
So
be
I
better
can smoke. So I can smoke more and more now, no?
Well, no. The best thing would be to not smoke.
Yeah, I know.
But that's probably what the physician was looking at. Diaphragmatic breathing and breathing techniques are used for respiratory problems in hospitals, exactly for the reason that I said, that it makes your breathing, your lungs more flexible. And having those lungs work better improves your health significantly. Other questions, comments before we pause? Because we're almost at the end. Yes, Henriette. Questions,
Nothing.
comments? Okay.
No.
I'm going to take these last 10 minutes to the following. I'm going to repeat some things. A lot of what I've been sharing with you, for most of you, is theoretical. I've been speaking about diaphragmatic breathing for self-regulation, which then permits you to meditate more efficiently, because the more deeply you breathe, the calmer you are, the more time you can spend in meditation. Once you can practice, you can use this for any type of meditation, and this is key. Meditation, there are many types of meditation. Each one of those types of meditation brings something different to you or to whomever you are working with. It is a system, and this system incorporates cognitive and behavioral therapy, because it is a way of looking at the world, looking at thoughts, and looking at your emotion and behavior. But you have to practice and you have to read. The reason I wrote the book, which is the first 4 hours of my workshop, usually, is because breathing and focus are key. I am going to encourage you to, this weekend, start reading the book. And you don't have to start reading in chapter 1. You can start reading in chapter 15. It would be good to read from chapter 1, because there is information, there's interesting things, but it's more of an introduction, a little bit of a history, starting in the 1960s. The practice part comes in chapter 15 onward. Okay. Questions, comments, concerns, Maria Magdalena?
It's almost 10 p.m. here.
Yes.
So, and we still have next week's session also. It's Friday, same time, 8 p.m. Beirut time.
Is it going to be the same people?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
I guess
So for everybody who is here, and I apologize for interrupting you, Maria Magdalena. For everybody who's today here, I recommend continue practicing, start reading the book, practice. Next Friday, when we meet, you're going to have questions. You're going to have comments on your practice, on your experience. Use it, ask me, because I've been doing this for over 40 years. I know what I'm doing, not only in practice, not only theoretically. So I'm glad that we're going to be meeting next week. Maria Magdalena.
there's Sandrilla who wrote something in the chat before we start.
Sandra?
Yeah.
Yeah, recently I got rid of my breathing problems before I could. Yeah. Yes. I can't tell you everything that happens. Cardiac problems, heart attacks. People who have heart attacks, if they do this practice, they can walk more without being short of breath. They can take less medication. If you take less medication, you're protecting your body. I know of people who have stopped taking medication because they have been practicing. Breathing helps every single human being. It does not matter what kind of problem you have. You don't even have to have a problem. It's going to help you. And you can read more about that in the book. So shall we pause if there are no more questions? A question. Do you have any recommendations for those new to the practice? Yes. Celine, 1, breathe, practice. 2, read the book and practice with the book. Practice with the book. Download the app. I'm gonna see if I can put the app there again. There is an app. That application is research-based. It is a Davidson, who was a classmate of Daniel Goleman. Very good research. He practices himself. Download the app. When we're learning, it's easier when somebody's guiding you, which the app can guide you. So this is what I would recommend. How much time a day? If you can breathe consciously, breathe consciously. If you can do 5 minutes of formal practice, do 5 minutes. If you can do 2 minutes, 10 minutes, do 10 minutes. The important thing is to practice. You are welcome, Hilda. Other questions, comments before we pause? Again, read the book, come back next week, come back with questions, but practice.
Okay.
Okay.
Are we going to take a little bit, have an idea about the kind of breathings that you, in the next session, that you taught us in the workshop? Like
Yeah,
ocean breathing and...
We can talk about, and actually what we can do is we can do some more practice.
Great.
Next week we can do more practice and answer the questions which you're going to have.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you all
Have
have
a
a
good
good
night.
weekend and practice. Good night.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.